Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I have yet an incredible, inspiring guest joining me today. I actually met this amazing person 7 years ago, back when I first started my journey, and it's been an absolute privilege to watch her journey from a distance, the people that she's helping, her own journey, going from obviously in the fitness industry, which you'll hear about, but diving more into the spiritual side of things, which we'll probably hear about on this podcast. But a young gymnast accepted into AIS, for people listening, the Australian Institute of Sport, at 12 years old, completed a Bachelor of Exercise Science and Nutrition, and completed most of a master's in exercise physiology. Has run her own business since completing her degree, competed in 5 bodybuilding shows in total, placing first in ICN, second place in ABN, then moved on to WBFF, placed fourth in her first show, and first place in getting a pro status for the second time. Working with clothing brands and massive brands such as Muscle Nation, and currently an online health and fitness coach. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is Demi Jefferys. Demi, thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you for asking me to come on. I love it. I can't wait to get into this.
Excited to have a quality conversation today.
Yeah, I've been listening to your podcasts and they're truly inspiring. So I'm actually so grateful that I get to come on and share parts of my story, because I know that using your voice, it does help others and inspires others as well.
Well, I'm grateful that you're here, and I'm looking forward to hearing your story. I'm someone that loves hearing people's stories, because it obviously shows where their beliefs come from, their patterns, their pains, their passions, their values, where they come from. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, because I actually haven't heard it. So Demi, as most of my guests do, please share with us your story. Go as detailed, as deep, as shallow, as wide, as narrow as you want to. And I guess, explain to us, who is Demi Jefferys?
Yeah, well, when you asked me to share my story, I thought I haven't really actually shared my whole story. And obviously everyone's whole story is going to be so long. So I'll pick out the bits and pieces, but whatever you want to delve really deep into, let's do it as well. But I realize, like, it really does start when you're a kid. Hey, like, that makes up a huge part of who you are. So my story starts from where I was raised, which is Nimbin. So anyone who doesn't know, Nimbin is like, yeah, a really small hippie town. There's not many people there. A lot of the people, I'm going to generalize the hippie thing, but they're very free thinkers. They don't really go with societal norms. A lot of them don't have jobs or anything like that. It's a really beautiful place. And on the other side of that, you can look at this kind of town from maybe an outside perspective, if you didn't grow up there, and be like, okay, there's a lot of drugs, alcohol, people on the street, not really doing anything with their lives. But I think what you don't really see from that outside perspective is growing up there, actually, it made me who I am. So I'm actually so grateful for it. Nimbin is about 1.5 hours away from the Gold Coast. It's not close to beaches or anything like that we have here, which I do absolutely love and so grateful for. But we have creeks and waterfalls, and, your next door neighbors, like, you have to walk to their house. Like, everyone is very far away from each other. You're not side by side neighbors. You're out playing. I mean, we grew up, I'm born in 1992, so we grew up without phones. We didn't have TV reception where we lived. The shops were really far away, so you only did like one weekly shop, and it was more so like organic markets and things like that. A lot of local produce. If you want a salad, you kind of make it in the garden. Like, my dad's a gardener. Yeah. So looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm actually so grateful for this beautiful, really wholesome hippie in quotation marks upbringing that I got to live. And it definitely made me very much like that. Deep to my core, I am a bit of a, free thinker, free spirit, kind of go against societal norms now. I mean, not always, because we will get lost. But yeah, and I think when you grow up in a place like this, you do see both sides. You see that beautiful side, and then you see that side where people do get lost with drugs and alcohol. And you have a choice. And growing up, I did see a lot of that. Even within my family, there was drug and alcohol abuse. people on the streets and everything like that. But you have two choices, you know. You have a choice to play that victim mentality and be like, I can be like that and be like, you know, people around you, and have that victim role of like, well, my parents are like this way, so therefore I'm going to be an alcoholic, or whatever it is that you're going through. I know everyone goes through something different. Or you can take the other side of that and choose, you know, how you want to live your life, and you can learn from that. And I know at a very young age, I took the role of like, I can do whatever I want with my life. I can go anywhere that I want. And I know that exactly what I didn't want. I saw all the things that I didn't want. And for me, I knew Nimbin was a beautiful upbringing and it's a beautiful place. And my parents taught me some really great life lessons that I now know. I'm like, that's what they were saying. And from that, though, I always wanted more. So yeah, I moved to the Gold Coast actually when I was about 22, 23.
Yep.
Yeah, so I actually lived in Nimbin quite a long time. So it's a big part of who I am. But yeah, my dad was very much taught me the lessons of chasing your passion. You know, it doesn't matter if you make money or not, as long as you're happy in life, you know, all the little beautiful messages along the way. So I think that's what I always did. And throughout school, I never knew what I wanted to do. I always knew that health and fitness was a huge part of my life. Like obviously I did gymnastics and competed at quite a high level, and I got accepted to the AIS, and that was probably my first ever like big decision in life, like what do you want to do? And mum and dad left it up to me. You know, I was 12 years old and they're like, do you want this? Do you want to move to Canberra on your own and pursue that dream? Or do you want to live here with your family? And I was like, oh my God, this is such a hard time in my life, because I was like, I love gymnastics, but I love my family so much. And so that was probably my first big choice in life that I had to really just sit with it. I was very much like always have been like on my own, listening to my own thoughts and working out what I truly wanted. And yeah, from there, I chose to stay home with my family. And it was the best choice ever, because obviously it made me who I am today. So therefore I might have been, you know, a gymnast or whatever. But growing up with that gymnastic background, it was so funny because I listened to Morgan Rose, you know, and who else was it that was the gymnast on your Meg.
Yeah.
Meg. I'm like, oh, it's so true. And guys, if you listen to those podcasts, like gymnastics, it lives and breathes like discipline in your life.
It's
like,
brutal.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think there's always two sides to that as well. Like there's the side of like, it can be good, especially for business, and you're always hardworking, but that can get and a lot of pressure on yourself when you aren't able to show up. I think you push yourself so much, and you don't have the ability sometimes to allow yourself to take a step back and realize like it's okay, you know. And it's also like it can give you that mindset of you're chasing a trophy instead of like enjoying the journey of it. So I feel like gymnastics for me was like this beautiful gateway into learning discipline and learning routine and structure. And like I had to watch my diet, you know, I couldn't eat all the other foods that the other kids ate because of weight. But then on the other side of it, it's so routine, it's so disciplined that when you do stuff up, and like, to be honest, I had a bread roll one day and one of the coaches was like, no, Demi can't eat that. And like, I think at a young age, it's like, they probably don't do that now, but it's just like, it's pretty full on. Yeah. So from there, I feel like possibly some of my eating habits started to kind of get ingrained in me. And we grew up with such whole foods and healthy foods on the other side of like the spectrum. So it was so much whole foods, so much healthy foods that every other food I deemed as bad. You know, we weren't allowed like sugar and treats and things like that. So I think whenever I had that kind of food, I felt really bad and really naughty. So although my upbringing was like super wholesome and stuff, it was almost on like too much for me at times, because then I had to go back to the other side. I feel like at a really young age, I actually developed some really bad eating behaviors that I wasn't actually aware of until bodybuilding, and I started to like work through those. And my mum was a PT as well. So she inspired me a lot. She worked really hard. She like pushed me in the gym to do all different styles of training. And I absolutely loved it so much. Like she created so much passion for me. I did yoga with her. It was really, really great. And then on the other side of it, I actually also saw someone who, like in my stepmom, who jumped on the scales all the time. She was always dieting. And we just weren't aware at that time was the time where, you know, carbs were bad, and everyone was kind of scared of eating bad foods. It had to be whole food. So I think being brought up in that era, again, I just was fed a lot of like beliefs about food. And this created just imbalance in my system, and it just went on and on. Like it created so much yo-yo dieting for me that I only really ever felt good when I was like chasing a goal and dieting. To be totally honest, I think that's why I did bodybuilding. Looking back at it, I'm like, you know, I can feel really good when I look a certain way. It's like external validation of like everyone's looking at you, they're seeing your body, they're seeing that discipline that I did have. You know, it does take a lot of discipline to get there, but I also learned to, yeah, really put a lot of worth into my body and make some maybe unhealthy choices along that journey as well. I do really value the experience of it. It did teach me a lot, and it definitely served its purpose. And there's lots of good things that have come out of bodybuilding for me. But those were just some things that I brought to awareness, like really only recently, that I was like, okay, wow, there's some deep rooted stuff that I had to work on. And that's why I did reach out to Nikki. You know, she was a WBFF, or is a WBFF pro as well. And I could relate to some things that she was putting up there. And yeah, I thought, why not? You know, you've got nothing to lose. I didn't feel in alignment in my life. So I reached out to her, and that was really the start of my self-awareness. And it was the start of me gaining back my power and who I was, and kind of just through that self-discovery, like I just felt like I was just shedding so many layers, so many, like that transformation process was hard but beautiful. And I think people don't realize that, like when you go through it, actually so many people reached out to me and was like, are you okay? You seem upset. Like it's like, well, I'm bringing up a lot of shit, but no one can see what you're doing because you're doing it on your own. But the beautiful end of that is like the person I am now, and I know the person that I am going to continue to show up and be is like someone really, really just, it's just me, you know, deep to my core. I know it's who I am. I know what I want. And I want to be that light. Like Nikki, I always explain, like she was kind of like this light for me that kind of guided me. Like I want to be that for other women now. So that process was just like such a great learning experience for me. I learned so much, but I'm still learning so much.
What a fucking journey. What a story. It's I didn't realize you're from Nimid. That was the
Yeah.
first part. I'm from a little island, and like very little, there's no I think there's internet now, but there's not a single set of traffic lights. It's most of the food is organically grown. So the
Mm.
population is about 1,500. So it's there's actually quite a lot of similarities with that. So I didn't realize that. I guess there's a lot I'd love to touch on. I don't know really where to start. I'd love to probably go probably I guess the bodybuilder industry, because I've been in the industry for a long time. I actually had someone on the podcast yesterday who has come from that industry as well. I'd love to know your take. You actually mentioned a little bit of it, so maybe diving into that a little bit more, like around, I guess, just the mentality and the reasons people do it, and just the pros and cons, and how maybe you were affected in whether it was negative or a positive way. You mentioned about like external validation and tying up your worth into how you look. And I know you've going through a shedding of layers and you're working on a lot of shit, as you've mentioned. So I'd love to know, I guess, your experience in that industry from a mentality side of things, how it shaped you, I guess the negatives that was a part of that, and I guess the work you've done to, I guess, overcome that. That was a big question, but I hope that made sense.
There's a lot to it, because I did it for like 5 years, and I feel like throughout that whole process I was changing and developing as you do. But the where it all started, like that initial I'm going to do a bodybuilding show, came from I need to get my shit together. I'm not happy within my body. If I do this, you're going to be up on that stage. People are going to be judging you. You have to get your shit together. Like, you can't, there's no going back. And once you get that, you're going to feel so good about yourself. You're never going to go back to those old habits, which were like binge eating. So I thought this is definitely the answer to all of my problems. I have to do this. And also, it's so hard. Like, bodybuilding is so tough mentally and physically. So if I can do that, that means like I'm really, really tough and I'm really good. And it kind of just created this self-worth. And I tell you, it didn't matter how many shows I did. Every time I finished a show, I would resort back to my old patterns. I would binge. I would be 10 times worse. I would put on 10 kilos in a matter of a month, like really, really bad. And I would eat in secrecy. I wouldn't tell anyone. I would hide it. So at the end of the day, the shows didn't do shit for my self-worth. It made it worse for me. I know everyone has a different experience. I just want to say that. But for me, it made it worse, because then I was just placing so much pressure on myself. And when I couldn't show up and be that person, I would want to hide. When I put on weight, which is normally healthy weight after a show, I didn't feel good, because I thought when I first started bodybuilding, I actually thought that that's the body that you could maintain, because everyone on Instagram had that physique that I was following. They were my goals. They were my inspo. I thought, if I can look like those girls, I'll become an Instagram girl, that other people admire and follow and look up to. And do you know what? In a way, I kind of did, because I had so many girls reach out to me once I became a pro status, like another status, another external validation that I could tick off and not feel absolutely anything after, except for more body dysmorphia, more binge eating, more self-sabotaging cycles that really aren't good for you, not good for your soul. Where was I going with this?
Where were you going? This is amazing. I guess the question was your experience, I guess, negative experiences, which you're sharing now, and then maybe how then you transitioned, or maybe what it's taught you, and how, if you were to say, for anyone listening who is inspired to go down that route, maybe what you would do differently, or just some tips to handle it a little bit more, maybe something like that.
Sorry, I got so lost there. But
Don't be sorry. I love it. I love your passion. That's why I've invited you on.
So basically, it became for me hugely reliant on that external validation through getting that trophy, through having the status, through having the body. And when everyone else was commenting on the photos that I was putting up and I was doing the photo shoots, it just was like ching, ching, ching. It's like money's coming in, like you feel good. But then on the flip side of that, when you're not getting that, when you don't look like that and you're actually healthy, I might say, like a normal human being. And when you're eating, you know, when I'd go out and have like a pizza or something, I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't want to advertise that because, you know, I'm meant to be a pro fitness bikini model. Yeah, you'd feel like you're failing. You feel like you're doing something wrong, which you're totally not. And then same with the body dysmorphia. But in order to overcome that, God, I think for me personally, COVID was such a huge impact on my life in a really beneficial way, because I tried to compete in 3 different comps and they all got cancelled.
Yep.
So what that taught me was like, if you can't compete, who are you?
Ooh,
Like,
that's a
you
good
know,
question.
I
I
was
like that.
like, you've tried 3 times now and COVID just kept coming up. So I put myself through that prep. And then I still experienced, even though I didn't get to the show, I still experienced all the binging and the, you know, poor body image, all of that kind of low self-esteem around it, even though I never got to compete and after. So every time I went through that, I was like, are you always going to feel like this if you're not competing? And so if you don't compete, then what does your life even look like? Because do you know what? My whole life was I just attached myself to that identity. If someone asked me like, who are you? I'd be like, I'm a bodybuilder, I'm a pro bikini model. Like I was proud of it, and yes, I should be, but it's not my whole life, you know, it's not the reason that I've been put here to have that body or whatever. So I started to just ask myself those deep questions. And someone even said to me, you know, when you put up the Instagram questions, they said, what are your hobbies? And this was something that I'll remember forever, because I was like, what do you mean hobbies? I go to the gym, like that's my hobby. And
That's who I am.
it's who I am. I'm a gym girl. I love spending time in the gym. But the thing is, you spend hours in the gym. You spend hours getting ready for the gym, taking the videos, putting makeup on to feel good about yourself. It did actually become pretty obsessive, I will say. And I always like to say it's kind of like, it was my mask. It was my mask of trying to fit in on the Gold Coast. For me personally, I think when I moved here, it just became the norm for me to like, okay, this is a new group of people, a new place. This is what everyone does here. This is how they look. Let's fit in. Let's be liked. And then I realized like I didn't need any of that to feel good about myself. Like I just needed to be me.
What I love about you, Demi, and why one of the many reasons why I wanted to have you on here is you've been, I guess, at the peak of your game in your respective field, which is very aesthetically focused. It's literally how good can you look on stage, from a body to a makeup to a routine to a physique, and obviously being on the Gold Coast probably instills that a bit more. A lot of the Gold Coast can be very image orientated. And just like even mentioning and seeing your journey where you have, I guess, tapped a little bit more into your spiritual side, you've done a bit more sort of self work and deep work, and you've mentioned a little bit as you've gone. I guess I would love to know, what have been some of the really insightful or impactful, I call them moments and times. It's like that light bulb where it like really clicks or it really makes sense to you, that's helped you not be so extrinsically, uh, what's the word I was looking for? Intrinsically validated to be worthy. Like you, from what, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, you seem like someone who is becoming more and more less needy of that, where you know more of your worth. You don't need to have the makeup on, the perfect body, the perfect look, the perfect figure, and perfect is subjective to whatever it is that you're going for. So I guess because I just know it's a huge problem, like whether you are as fit as you are or just the average person, they're seeking all this external validation from friends, from obviously the likes on Instagram to the views to whatever, to just validate their own worth. And from someone who's gone from the peak of it, where you're literally on stage coming first in comps, to, I guess, not needing that as much. I'm sure it still shows up now and then. But I guess what's been your journey? What have been some of like the crucial points for you to not need so much external validation?
God, it's like it's constant learning and improving and getting to know yourself. I truly think it happened just little by little made a lot. And it was kind of just being more vulnerable and opening up who I was more so. And just I can't even remember like pivotal moments, but it's more so like, as little as this sounds, like when I took out my hair extensions, I was like, oh my God, this feels really great, because I felt like it was just something to hide. When I felt the confidence to go out without makeup anymore and know that no one else is judging me, only I was judging myself.
Ooh.
That was like a huge moment. What else? I think just really getting to know myself and what my values are and living within those values as well. I feel like I thought I was, but I really, really wasn't. There was a huge gap there. And whenever I showed up as myself, raw, vulnerable, open, I got the best response from everyone else, actually.
Was
Like
that? What do you think?
because it's me without any of those masks, and it proves that people love you for you, and they see that. I think now you can kind of see when people are wearing masks, and you want everyone to have the confidence to be themselves, to be authentic, to show up without people caring. So I feel like on my Instagram was the first time that I started to just speak my truth. I don't know, it just came. I just kind of started to not think about what captions I wanted to write. I didn't listen to any of the voices like from anyone else saying you should do this or you should do that. I stopped comparing myself to other people too. I think in our industry, a lot of coaches compare, okay, what's she wearing? What kind of product is she bringing out? I just concentrated on what I wanted to do, like from here, not from like a business perspective or from what another coach is doing or what is the best trending. Everything just started to come actually from my heart. Like everything I write is just kind of like a journal. Like I'm just writing, it just comes to me. And that's actually just come from being alone, I think.
Can you share a little bit? You mentioned that when you were growing up, you spent a lot of time by yourself because of just the place you grew up in. A lot of sort of time to self-reflect and self-think. I got a couple questions. I'll try to tie them all in together. It's around, I guess, how can people express themselves authentically more? My purpose is to help reveal people's authentic selves. And that ties into being vulnerable, speaking your truth, all the stuff you're talking about. And you just mentioned like spending time with your own thoughts. Are there things that you've done or that you would recommend for someone who is struggling or has struggled to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to speak their truth, to stop wearing a mask? Do you have some practical tips that someone could start to do to start to be a little bit more vulnerable, to be a bit more authentic, to start to speak their truth a little bit more?
I have so many, and
Fire
I'm just
away.
going to start. I'm going to start with saying, look at the people that you surround yourself with. I started to really just go into my shell a bit more when I was first on this journey, because I really wanted to focus on me. So even if you live with people, even if you're at work, you're in the gym, I think it really pays off just somewhat in a healthy way isolating yourself or putting up those boundaries with people, especially if they are negative or draining, which you should notice, because when you're around certain people, they either lift you up or they can bring you down. And I think I started to just put up my boundaries a bit, which is a big thing for me, because I feel like growing up I was a huge people pleaser. And yeah, when you put up those boundaries, that allows you just to filter in everything. I unfollowed a lot of people as well on my Instagram, and I really just surrounded myself with people who encourage deep conversation, people who did things that I was interested in, like from my heart, and people who actually could see you for you and change your perception sometimes. We're always very quick to, I know, be a victim or be negative, but when you can surround yourself with people who go, hey, maybe you should look at it like this, that really was really life-changing for me. Nikki, Jenna, just listening to podcasts instead of listening to people is something that I find really, really rewarding and life-changing, because you're choosing to listen to that person. That can become one of your 5 friends that you hang around. They say you are, your 5 friends. I started to really tune into that. And one of my best friends, like I listened to Meg's podcast, and I love how she said she shares her journal thoughts with her partner.
Yeah.
And this is actually something naturally that I do with my girlfriend. We just voice memo, or when we catch up each week, we kind of share those journal thoughts, and it does really help you understand another person, and it helps you understand yourself too.
How and so just to read that back, so friend audit the people that you got in your life, set boundaries, podcasting, journaling, and also sharing that journaling. I'll ask if you've got any more, but I would love to ask probably about the boundaries. That's been a big sort of theme for my life lately. I literally did a podcast on it this week that I'll post next week. And I'm just curious because I find people don't understand what a boundary is, but I also find people struggle to communicate it and actually hold people to it because they feel bad, they feel guilty, they don't want to hurt people's feelings. Could you share with us how you've set boundaries and literally like even use an example of how you were able to enforce it? Because I know if people are honest and in tune to themselves, they'll know the people that make them doubt themselves, or if someone calls you right now and as soon as you see their name you get like anxious and you get tight chested, that's probably not someone that you really want to talk to, but they feel guilty and they pick it up and then they just mostly dump on them and it reminds them why they felt like shit, but they don't actually have the courage or maybe even the tools. They don't know how to set a boundary. So how were you able to set boundaries along that journey that you're just talking about?
I think it took time, patience, and practice. It's not easy at the start, especially if you are someone who likes to please others and put their needs before yours. But if you can tap into just like your awareness and go, okay, well, how do I feel after I hang out with these people versus like, how do I feel hanging out with other people or time alone when you do put up the boundaries? How do I feel when I say yes versus how do I feel when I say no? And I think when you do that, you start to create almost like a reward system in your brain. You're like, wow, I feel really good when I say no. I'm probably going to do that again. I feel really good when it's like losing weight. When you eat good and you lose weight and you're like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. And
it's working.
Yeah, you see the progress in it as well. And you know that your friendships actually deepen, especially good friendships, because they understand what you're going through. If you can communicate with them, I think that's such an important tool to be able to actually, effectively come across why you're putting up that boundary, or like why you can't go to their birthday or something. I think quite often we don't give people enough information. We just go, oh, I can't come. And then they might take that personally. If you can maybe communicate better.
Yeah, I was about to say communicate. How could you, if you could use an example? I'm a practical person, as we spoke before the call. Like, how could someone? So right now, someone's listening. They're like, "Fuck, I've got a friend that I just don't like hanging out with, and it might be their friend for 10 years, and but we've been childhood friends forever, and I don't want to whatever." But they just feel shit when they hang out with them, or even a family member, or whoever it may be. How would they communicate that? How did you communicate that if you had to, or if you did with certain people? You're smiling, so maybe you did. So
how did you think actually?
How did you actually communicate it? Because that's where I find people get stuck because they don't know what to say. So, and with people, I know certainty is a big thing. It's one of our human needs. And if we don't have certainty on how to do it, we probably won't do it. So I'm just curious of how you did or how you would communicate a boundary for someone.
For me personally, and I'm sure everyone's different, it's just making sure like that it's not about them, it's about you, and it's honoring your needs. So you don't have to feel bad or guilty for that. And if it truly comes from a place of like, this is what I need for whatever is happening in your life, they should be so respectful of that. I do it with my clients as well. Like if you're allowing them to overcross the boundaries, I think that's kind of on you. You can't be like, oh, I hate my clients text me at 10. Like, if you're writing back, that's you're not following your own rules there. So I think you have to really look at yourself in the mirror almost and be like, you need to honor whatever you need. And I think that just comes across when you communicate with your friends.
Epic. What
Mm.
other, just to, in case there's any more, because I did jump in there. So you said auditing your friends. So just being conscious of how people make you feel and whether they lift you up or pull you down. Set boundaries within your life, which would include friends, time for yourself, work, social media, whatever it is, podcasting, journaling, also sharing the journaling. I really love that you've got someone in your life that you can actually share with. That's fucking awesome. I love that. Is there anything else that would help people just start to be more vulnerable, more authentic, speak up a little bit more?
It's always going to come from whatever connects you to yourself. And I think I have just written a huge list, and I really think everyone should do this, but it's like the list that I go to when I know that I need to connect with myself. And when you do that, that's when you're able to listen to your thoughts and understand yourself and, reach your higher purpose in life. So create a list. And when I first created this list, I was like, oh, this is funny because I haven't done a lot of these things for a while when I was first on this journey. And the easiest way to create a list is like go back to doing whatever the hell you did when you were a kid. What did you do when you had fun? Were you doing handstands? Were you out playing with your friends? Were you making yummy food in the kitchen? Were you listening to music and dancing? Were you playing with your dogs at home? Like the list can be really long and you can keep adding to it. But if you're like struggling because you haven't started this kind of journey yet, or you don't spend much time with yourself, or you're on your phone a lot, just think, okay, well, what did I do when I was a kid? Because that stuff connects you to yourself. Like, I love doing that. That's where I started. And then my list just grew and I started doing things that I've never tried before. And that's kind of what my life is more about now, like trying new things.
What are some of those
That
things?
connects me to me.
What are some of the things? This reminds me of, I guess, child work or inner child work, expressing your inner child. What were some of the ones for you? Like on that, I wrote connecting with yourself list. What were some of those things for you?
Yeah, it's because I grew up, we had a dam at home. So, and then there's creeks and waterfalls. That was a huge one for me. So now I always make time to go to like a creek or a waterfall. The beach, going to the beach, like I have so many good memories because it was such a gift when we got to go to the beach.
Yeah.
We would spend all day there because it took us an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So we would make the whole day there, and you're in the sun, like being in the sun. How amazing do you feel when you're in the sun?
Beautiful.
And swimming in the ocean. And these are all things that you can do when you're on your own. And handstands, because I was a gymnast, like just, I'm not great at handstands anymore, but I can just chuck up a handstand and do some cartwheels and roll around on the grass like most kids do that. And all of a sudden you just feel so, so good.
What are some of the things you mentioned it as you're sort of in flow, but you said like you're shedding many layers of yourself. There's things that have been bringing up a lot of shit. I'm just curious if you could just elaborate a little bit more and obviously go as personal or private as you please. Just a bit more context on that. And I guess in how you're doing that work. Obviously, I'm huge into mental health. That's what I love and that's what I'm extremely passionate about. And I just know it's not as, I guess it's taboo and it's not as, I guess, educated and spoken about. It's starting to. I definitely think mental health is definitely on the rise in terms of it, which is something I'm very proud of and passionate about. But I guess what have you been doing to work on you? What's been showing up, and then we can maybe take that somewhere.
So what I've been doing to go on this journey,
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
yeah, I feel like I started to ask myself questions because I noticed I wasn't happy, no matter how much money I had, no matter how good my life was, no matter that I was in, a good relationship and I have a good family, all the good stuff that was in my life. It's like I was climbing this ladder, and every step you should feel so good and grateful for. I just didn't quite feel that. So I just started to ask myself, like, I had this feeling like this isn't really what your life is supposed to be. It was kind of just, I feel like everyone has this, honestly. You get to a point where you're like, you want more, there's something more, and nothing external can give you that. You know that the next car, iPhone, the next trophy, a better body, none of those things externally is going to create that happiness. And that's when you go, okay, well, what is happening within me? Like, how can I change that? I didn't really know where to start. I never grew up reading books, which is something that I really regret now, because I think that is, a beautiful way to learn, especially more so mindset, spiritual books. But yeah, that's when I did reach out to Nikki and I started. So I believe you guys do similar work.
Yep.
Started to learn about beliefs and learn about my values. I learned about, identity. I learned about boundaries, communications, emotions. God, this list could go on. Money mindset, like business stuff, relationships. I learned to unlearn most things. It was a process of unlearning and then relearning all the stuff that actually served me, like rewiring your brain. And as I started to do this, that's what I mean, like every time you realize, okay, like this trauma or this belief created this in my life, that's you shedding your shit off. Every time you realize, okay, that person's judgments about me is actually me and something that I need to work on, there's so many layers. And I feel like once you start, you can't stop. It's kind of addictive because every layer you shed, you're becoming more and more and more like yourself and who you're truly supposed to be. And God, I'm so excited to be old because I'm going to be so wise. Like, it's just such a beautiful journey. And it's, if you have a coach or a mentor, you're obviously, your growth is going to be a lot more than if you do start on your own, I believe. So I think there was like a lot of value for that in me. And it's something that I tell everyone, like, you can't put a price on it. It's truly changing your life, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the best job in the world that you guys do. And we are so lucky to go through that transformation. Then after, I've had a relationship breakup. I've had heaps of things happen to me within the last 6 months. And I think those things have truly tested and challenged me to change my perception on life. And I think that's been another huge transformative time for me, because like I said, when I grew up, you have two choices, right? It's like you play victim or you learn from it. And I feel like at the moment, so much has come up for me. So I'm like learning. And when you're doing that, you're growing, evolving, shedding those layers again and again and again.
What were some of the bigger sheds or bigger releases for you that you even felt lighter or really moved the needle a lot for you? What were some of the bigger ones, whether it's a limited belief or a trauma or a perception or a tool, or just what some sort of a couple, or just even one or two of the real big ones that really you noticed the shift in your life once you, I guess, dissolved it or learnt it or etc.
Yeah, well, I never thought I had any kind of trauma until I started to delve into and learn about that. And there's quite a few things that have come up, but one of the main ones was just thinking that when my mom left me when I was 2, and also my stepmom and dad broke up when I was like 22, you create that story, that you're not lovable, not worthy, all those kind of things, and they play out in your life so much until you dig to that root, and ask yourself, like, where is this coming from, and is it even true? You got to challenge that, and it's not, and you got to change your perception. And forgiveness is such a huge part of my life now. Like, I think forgiveness is something we all need to practice, and it usually just is for you, like you're forgiving whatever happened in the past for yourself, because you're the only one staying hurt from that. You're the only one that is like really impacted from that. So for me, like changing that belief and just feeling so much compassion towards my mom or whatever else happened in my life where I did find those traumas, that was a huge unshedding.
Wow. What were
Mm.
some of the, if you mentioned books, you mentioned podcasts, are there some that come to mind for you that have really, again, I guess I'm looking for the ones that I guess can really move the needle for obviously yourself, but for people that are listening that they're like, great, I want to get started. I want to start becoming more authentic, be more vulnerable. I want to work on myself. Is there any books, podcasts, coaches, mentors that have really shifted you? I've obviously mentioned Nikki a couple of times. I'm sure she's played a huge role in yours. Is there books? Is there podcasts? Are there things that have really helped and served you?
Um, I think, yeah, Nikki was definitely the first person. And then I just started to follow all different mindset people, but none really like stood out so much to me, because I think I could relate to Nikki's story so much. I think that's what really hooked me. There was so much I could relate to. But yeah, in terms of role models as well, I was kind of looking around hoping that I could have that, but I didn't find that. And I think that's why I heavily relied on having a coach, having books, having the podcast to learn from and kind of act as a mentor, because personally around me I didn't really feel like I had that.
Mm. What are some of the books that you've read already that you would recommend to others?
Oh, okay. Think Like a Monk
Yeah.
by,
Jay Shetty.
I love him. He's so good and easy to listen to as
Yeah.
well. If you do an audiobook too.
Yeah.
I really like Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Really cool.
And I've been reading the 4 Agreements. It's just
Yeah.
such an easy read, and you get really lost in it. Whereas I feel like Joe's book is probably a little bit harder. You have to kind of
Focus.
reread, especially if you are a new reader. I think honestly, the 4 Agreements, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most beautiful book to really start with, I think.
Epic.
Mm.
What's next for you? What's your, I guess, passion? I know obviously you're currently an online health and fitness coach. What's your passion? What's your, I guess, your purpose long term moving forward as a coach, as a professional, as a woman, as a leader? What's next for Demi?
I've been asking myself this a lot, and do you know what? It changes all the time. But my biggest passion lies within health, because I think when you are healthy, you're more connected to yourself, and fitness, because movement is life and it will always be a big part of who I am. I love teaching people to move their bodies in all different ways. And really now just delving into more of the mindset. So I did just start studying, and I really want to bring out all of this stuff that I have learnt myself, because you just know how life-changing it can be. And I know that I have been put here to change people's lives. And although that might look differently throughout my life, and I think growing up and having a big family, like I've always taken that leadership role. Everyone is younger than me except for my twin. And we
You're a
have
twin. I
always,
didn't know that.
I'm a twin.
Didn't know that.
Completely different, but
Yeah.
yes, twins.
Epic. If you were
Yeah.
to, when you write a book, if you do in the future, what would be the biggest chapters? What would be the biggest lessons that you would teach to someone if they were to read your book?
Well, this is the good thing about, I think, having kids. I'm so excited to teach them all the lessons, and I have started to really write them out. But I think it's actually some really simple ones that have actually helped me so much, is knowing that life it can change at any moment. So if you can show up and be grateful every single day, it's something that I practice so much. I feel like I have always been grateful, but my level of gratitude has like increased so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it changes your life completely because you can enjoy everything. No matter how shit life gets or what it throws at you, it's always going to change. You can't just expect your life to plan out how it's meant to be. It'll always change. You'll always be thrown challenges. If you're grateful for the life that you get to live and all its lessons that it will teach you, like you are going to grow, you're going to evolve, and you're going to live the life that you're supposed to live. It's when you let that stuff stop you or you try and resist it, you try and resist the change, like, I don't want this to happen to me, or you play victim, that's when you're going to spiral down. So that would be like a huge lesson, I think, in life.
Whatever you resist will persist. I don't know who said
Yeah.
that, but I do like it. I will
Mhm.
claim it as not mine because I definitely stole that off someone else. Guys, Demi, if people were going to reach out to you, like if they wanted to connect with you, obviously for your professional services or just to connect and say thank you, share some light bulbs, maybe open up to you, how could someone connect with you or find you? What's the best way to get you?
Yeah, Instagram's always the best way. So it's Demi Jefferys _PT.
Amazing. Demi,
Yeah.
what do you want to be remembered for?
Being authentic, just me. I think that's
Good
everyone's
answer.
gift. Everyone's gift in life is no one else can be you. So why do we pretend to be other people or even jealous of other people? It's like literally you are this gift. So I think if everyone was just themselves, this place would be fucking incredible.
Be your authentic self from Demi Jefferys herself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening in all the way to the end of this podcast. You got some value from it. Please like, comment, and share. Send it to someone and start that ripple effect and start changing lives. Thank you, Demi. Your story is inspiring. You are an inspiring person, and you're already helping so many people, and your impact is going to just get bigger and bigger. So thank you for your time, and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.